Hello everyone. Welcome to this podcast. First episode ever of Juicy Conversations with Julie. I'm Julie. I will be your host throughout the many juicy conversations we have here. And well, this is my podcast. For context, I'm a politics and economics student. I'm currently in my final year and I study in the UK. Alongside that, I'm also an aspiring journalist, and I'm currently the deputy editor of my uni's political magazine. And with that magazine, I've done a little bit of podcasting and radio shows, which I realized I really, really enjoy and wanted to do more of. So a couple months ago, I thought, well, why not start my own podcast? And after a lot of brainstorming, mental breakdowns, and a lot of help from a lot of people, Juicy Conversations was born. So this podcast, unsurprisingly, after what I've just said, will be mainly centered around politics and society. I guess the goal, and that's something that I've done, or at least I've tried to do through the articles I wrote and through my journalism, is pretty simple. I just want to start conversations, raise awareness, hopefully educate each other, and make politics more accessible. I think a lot of the topics that come up with politics and social issues are so important, but they're not quite accessible as they should be. So hopefully this podcast can make them this much more accessible. So we'll be covering stuff like the news, whether that's the top headlines or news that's not being covered as much, but I think, or people around me think is important. We'll also be talking about, obviously, social and societal issues, feminism, racism, homophobia, just to state a few, because everyone knows there's a lot of things that are wrong with our world. But also just life, adulthood, mental health, emotions, sex and sexuality. Nothing is off limit. No topic is off limit. The more taboo or the more tricky the conversation is, the more I will be inclined to have it, because yeah, if we can just all be a bit more open-minded through these conversations and all learn from each other and each other's experiences, that's literally the only thing I want. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. My social media is set up at Juicy Conversations, or for Facebook, Juicy Conversations with Julie. I'll be trying to bring conversations and take conversations further on there, so it won't be just be me posting the podcasts that are out. I'll be trying to raise awareness and educate on there too, with the help of whoever has anything to say. And you can also get in touch with me if there's a topic you'd like me to cover, or if you'd like to come on the podcast. And as for listening, you can find me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, maybe not just yet, but I will be on eventually, and YouTube. I'm going to be filming a lot of these podcasts, not all of them because it takes a lot of time, but a lot of them I will be trying to film. I know I love a good video podcast. I love watching a podcast rather than just listening to it. So yeah, most of the episodes, if not all, will be on YouTube, and we'll have a video to accompany the audio. Yeah, I think that's it. So again, welcome to this first episode. For this first episode that is being recorded, I've got some of my favorite people in the world. I've got my 4 besties with me. We're going to go around the table and all introduce ourselves, and then we'll get into all the juicy topics, the juicy conversations we've had in store for you. Why don't you start us off?
So yeah, I'm Alice, and I study international economics and environment in Paris.
Whoa.
And yeah, what about you?
I'm Oriane. I currently study Arabic in Paris, and I also work in water governance.
Woo, woo.
Anouk.
Hi, I'm Anouk. I do sociology and politics in Scotland, a very cold country. And I don't have a job. Yet. Looking for one.
And I'm Eloise, and I just started working in a pharmaceutical company and started the adult life.
Working girl.
Yeah, so let's get into it.
Yes.
Today, we're going to be reflecting on 2020. Because, oh boy!
Good year.
Oh boy, what a year it was.
Mental health has never been better
Yeah.
for everyone.
A lot of crying, a lot of reflecting, a lot of wondering what the hell we're doing. But yeah, so guys, if you could describe 2020, I'm not even going to say 3 words, I'm going to say 1 word. What would it be? What would it be?
Annoying.
My personal experience?
Whatever. You could, yeah.
Okay,
Everything.
I'd say lesson.
Lesson. Oh,
That's a nice
Plural.
one.
that's a good word. That's a good word.
I'd say roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still thinking.
Unexpected.
Unexpected.
Unprecedented.
Oh yeah, the word
Unprecedented.
unprecedented. Jesus, we
You
heard
don't
it
hear
so
that
often.
Yeah. I'd say chaotic. I don't think it has to be in a bad way. Like lots of things are chaotic and still very nice, but
It's been
I don't think 2020 was that nice. It was something. Something is a good word to describe it.
there were good things. There were good parts, but yeah.
I would say memorable, but not
Yeah.
probably not in a very good way.
It was history, yeah.
Yeah.
History making.
I think we're gonna talk about that in the history book.
Yeah, for sure. We'll be telling our kids about 2020. Yeah, it's been a tough ride. We were talking about it just before we started the podcast. I was saying how I almost made it through the year without a mental breakdown, and then December hits, and it was just a bit too much. But I was thinking the other day in the shower, like you're through. Yeah, that's the only time that you get to kind of reflect because life is just so intense.
Life is really good. In the shower, there's no like
Literally, there's just-
outside
You're in your
distractions.
Yeah,
So
loud music that masks any other noise going on. Just boiling hot water on your body that kind of hurts, but it feels good. Like,
This is the only good I
yeah,
can
literally. You're crying, but you don't know if it's the water or the tips. It's kind of like. But I was thinking, like, what are my three most memorable, or like my most memorable moments, whether it be good or bad? And I thought, well, what a nice question for the podcast. So here's our second question.
3 of 2020.
Yeah.
Okay, 3 moments.
Anything, yeah, 3 to 5. Like, what were your most memorable points, moments?
I have one. I have them.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the first memorable was in March when shit hit the fan.
Yeah.
And it was panic everywhere. We were all going home. We thought it initially would be for 2 weeks, kind of a short holiday, ended up being extended to 8 months or whatever. However,
How naive we were. Naive and innocent.
and it was just
Believing in the government.
This is the shade I want to see on this podcast. This is it.
yeah, it was just such a weird feeling that like you could see that everyone was panicking
But still, we were so clueless, though.
and we were so clueless. I also think it
Yeah.
allowed a lot of people to actually take a break, a forced
Yeah.
break, and though like we had no idea what was going to happen the next day or the next time we'd look out the window, like just taking a
reflection.
Yeah. And it was, I think it was needed. It's just, everybody's lives were just so intense. I really, really needed that break. And I think the fact that we were so clueless about the situation, that was almost kind of better. It shielded you from being scared because you could only be scared to a certain extent. You didn't know enough to just remain. Yeah. So you just kind of moved on, caught up on a lot of sleep, took care of my skin, lost some weight. Like it was nice. It was getting all that fitness. Yeah.
That we didn't know we maybe could not.
Literally, it was good. It was just good to like chill and focus on what's really important, family and relationships with friends and just yourself.
We got to catch up with people that we hadn't seen in a long time.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
we didn't think we were going to see for a long time. Like, we all pretty much all went back to our families, except Anouk.
Yeah.
And for the good or the bad, we still, like, spend time with them. And it had been a long time we hadn't been living with them.
We got a lot of time
Since
with our
high
parents
school.
for 20 years.
Oh, for the
Yeah,
year,
yeah.
And I feel also just like as a friend, like I saw on my phone, what was it, like Hangout, the app
Yeah.
or
No.
something?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
House party.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like okay, now it's kind of we laugh at it now because obviously we're not like excited to go on another Zoom call or FaceTime. But at the beginning of the pandemic, I thought it was quite fun.
We
to,
even
like,
played like werewolf on
We
that.
were
Yeah. We were on
regularly.
it. We were on it. But the thing is, like, we are also privileged. But I feel like it does depend. Like, I know I was always aware of it, that I was in such a privileged situation because, like, I lost my job because of the pandemic. But, like, both my parents were employed. I was still living, and they didn't lose their jobs. I was living at home with them. Yeah? Oh.
Where were we?
Okay, we're back. We've had some technical issues, but we left off with Anouk saying that you reconnected with a lot of friends, And I was just saying that we're very privileged because, what was I saying? Yeah, like we were living with our parents. We all get on with our families. I don't think any of our parents really lost jobs or like really suffered from it. Not that I can remember.
From COVID?
Yeah, due to COVID and stuff like that.
No,
Like
I mean it was obviously harder for everyone.
Harder.
Yeah. But we are in a privileged situation where I feel like the real problems that were associated with the pandemic, we were lucky enough to not have to deal with. Like I know people who have had it. I haven't lost anyone close to me due to COVID. So in that sense, I feel like it made it easier to enjoy lockdown because I feel like this is the narrative you see on social media all the time. Like, take care of yourself, and lockdown is the time to kind of reconnect with your soul. And it's, for some people, it's just not an option. Like so many people still had to go to work. So many people got the virus.
For some people, they were mourning.
It's
just
literally.
version.
So it wasn't that easy for everyone. And I think it wasn't a learning curve for everyone. And it wasn't a time of self-care and of life being paused. I think some people either didn't get a chance to pause their lives or really suffered from it. So in that case, I also feel like when I do complain about the pandemic, I always feel almost bad because I feel like I'm in such a privileged situation. And it's just like, as students, for example, it's just like, yeah, we get classes online and exams are harder, but we still have that pulling us through. And at the same time, sometimes I look at how the governments are handling the situation and how, for example, they're treating students. And I'm just like, realizing they don't care. We kind of have been forgotten. So it's kind of been, the year has been just a constant battle between feeling bad for complaining and then reminding myself that I have every right to be upset because not only has it been hard emotionally, but also, it's not easy for young people.
It's not because you're not dying or knowing someone who's dying that you're not allowed to complain. Like there's this narrative, I feel that, people keep being like, you need to remember that you're privileged and that, you're not having it that hard. Like you need to compare yourself to other people and see that you're not, like it's what you're going through isn't as bad as other people. And then you're like, well, that's not the point, because I feel bad about myself and because I'm not having a great time.
Also,
But it's nothing compared to other people. Doesn't mean that I'm not allowed to feel bad or anything.
Yeah, and we know that we're lucky.
And the thing with privilege, it's like, that's the thing, is you have to recognize your privilege, not be ashamed of it. And that's kind of like, I feel, the second theme of 2020 after the pandemic. Privilege, just like with everything with the Black Lives Matter and with the pandemic, there's always some people who have it better than others. And I feel like we've turned privilege into something you should be ashamed of and you should fight against, when the real fight is just being aware of your privilege, making sure that you use it and making sure that you're mindful when you're around people who don't have that same privilege. But we've kind of turned it this year into something of like, well, you don't have a say, or you're not allowed to feel this or experience this or say this because you have this privilege, which I feel is something we really all need to sit down and reflect on, because we're not going to get anywhere if this is the narrative we keep having.
Privilege should be something that's like taken advantage of to better society and to better other communities, rather than just like a burden that you wear on your shoulders every day. So learning curve.
Learning lessons. Lessons. Any
Many
other
lessons.
memorable moments apart from March when it all started kicking in?
Talking about privilege, we were lucky enough to have vacation.
That's what
all
I was
together.
thinking.
Yes.
The
Yeah,
summer.
That
We had
was
a
a memorable.
summer,
We had a summer.
That was a break
Honestly,
from COVID.
I kind of hate saying it, but it was one of the best summers ever, because I never thought we were going to be able to go on holiday
Because we earned it. Like, we really felt like we earned.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
kind
and
of
we
a
were lucky
relief.
that like France opened up
Yeah.
and that we could travel, and
Definitely.
we knew that like we were still being safe amongst each other. Like we kind of created
course.
our own little bubble.
Definitely.
And
So I was just excited for that. It was like, we'll just go. Paris is a great city to be in as well. There's so many things to do. But then the fact that we actually got to get out of the city, celebrate, see each other, travel, rediscover the south of France, which is one of the best regions in the world. It was great. It was really good. Other memorable moment.
We did make the most of this summer.
And again, like, we're lucky just because France is like such a beautiful country. There's so many things to do, so many different sceneries. And we just went through the south, and we didn't even do all of the south, but it was so beautiful. It was so well,
not transportation.
going from one side of France to the other is surprisingly complicated.
I don't know how you did that.
Yeah, well,
I just followed. You took my tickets.
COVID is just 3 months of not seeing anyone. It's like, yeah, I'll
We
spend
were
13
there.
hours in 4 different Flix buses.
It's 36 degrees outside.
But you took 24 hours to get to
Yeah,
Italy, didn't
I
you?
took the same time as you guys to get to Italy and for you to get to
No,
the other
no, because
side.
you took 24 hours, didn't you?
Yeah.
We took 12. We took 14.
Oh, okay.
No,
Yeah, that's still
true.
good.
We left in the morning and got there in the evening.
I was smiling the whole way.
I feel like it was more fun. Like I remember it being okay. When I
No,
was
of course.
thinking about it leading up to it, I was like, we're gonna die.
But that's the thing, we didn't have any expectations of the summer, like at all.
Yeah.
We managed to be the 5 of us. It's been like, what,
Yeah, that
6
was-
years that we're
yes.
planning a trip.
Trip, all
Five
five
of
of us.
We
Yeah.
managed to do it under a world pandemic
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that's just how
We
it
didn't
happened.
infect anyone because we were actually careful.
No, we were
We were
always careful.
We didn't infect anyone. None of us got
Actually-
COVID from the summer.
Yeah, no, not from the summer. I never got COVID.
Me neither.
Anouk!
Hold on to the.
I got it like first week of lockdown, and I was like, right, well, this is it then.
But then I
I've
feel
just
like there's
gotten this over with.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least it's done.
And then they told you that you can have it several times.
Yeah.
There's
And
also
then
carriers
the worst part is you
coming,
can still
so-
transmit it even after you've caught it. Because from the beginning of this pandemic, I didn't even care if I got it. It's always been the I don't want to be spreading it. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it can be bad, but for us, it's got a really low chance of being that serious. So it's just really, I don't want to have it, not be aware that I have it, and be transmitting it.
Also, I knew you got it when we weren't really aware of
Yeah.
what was going on. Like, you were like, I'm just sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Back
like
when
in
I was still
March.
writing my article passionately.
Yeah. And then you were like, I think I got COVID.
Because I didn't know, because I had the weird symptoms of like I couldn't smell or taste anything for like a week and a half. But that always happens to me anyways when I get a cold. So I just thought it's March and I have a cold. Doesn't make any sense, but I'm sure it can happen. And then like it lasted like for like a week and a half, and I was like, that's a bit long, a little bit long. And then I kept seeing these articles being like, oh, new COVID symptoms, you like no taste, no smell, and I was like, I think I just had COVID. My partner had it. My flatmate had like the same symptoms, and I was like, I think that's
There's
COVID,
something
guys.
there.
Your flatmates got it too?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
They were like a cluster.
Did I tell you though? That's again for people listening at home. So my dad decided to go to Cameroon because something I didn't say in my introduction. I'm part Cameroonian, part French, and my dad is Cameroonian. So he decided to go to Cameroon in the middle of the pandemic, which already is a great idea, but he didn't really have a choice. He had to go. And he got COVID. So the day before he was supposed to get back on a plane to here, where his family really, really needed him, he got stuck in a 2-week quarantine in Cameroon, which sucked. But we're having other technical issues. I'm just going to ignore them. But yeah, he got COVID, but he realized coming back that there's a possibility that he didn't actually get it and that they said he got it just to keep him in Cameroon for longer. What? Because basically he has a friend of his who... Yeah, no, because we were thinking about it, and the more we thought about the situation, so he was living with his sister and her son. Mm-hmm. Neither of them got it from him. They lived together. That's kind of inevitable.
Wait, but who told him that he had COVID? Did he just get a test and they were like, "You've got COVID"?
Yeah.
But
Like a
was it like a
doctor.
fake?
Would have lied to make him stay.
Well, I mean, it could be a false positive.
It could have been a false positive, but because the other tests he did were negative. Like, I'm not going to throw shade and say anything bad. These are just hypotheses. Allegedly, there may be a possibility that he got a fake negative, because that's the thing, you have to pay. In Cameroon, it's not a sécu social, it's you have to pay when you go to the doctors and stuff like that.
Healthcare.
Universal healthcare.
The thing is, like, healthcare in France, I feel like there's no system really in the world that's exactly like ours, is there?
No.
So you have to call it.
I mean, my mom
Rarely.
in South Africa had to pay 200 euros
It's really in
Do you
the
see
UK
now,
also.
why
It's
they
really
might be
expensive.
inclined to make you stay and
for a blood test, like for a test.
exactly,
Oh, a
exactly.
test,
You
okay.
have to
Yeah.
pay, and so the more
great.
people pay, the more money.
It's like I was calling my grandparents in the States. So, as Julie, for those who don't know, I'm half French, half American.
That's also something
My-
we forgot to mention.
My mom is American. And so my grandparents live in the States, and I was calling my grandfather last week asking about vaccinations and when he was planning on getting vaccinated. And then he was asking us what our healthcare provider was, because in the States, the schedule of when you get vaccinated is dependent on your healthcare provider. And he just didn't understand that we didn't have a healthcare provider. So he kept asking for legit like 40 minutes, like, who's your healthcare provider? But I don't understand.
Yeah.
My taxes, government,
Yeah.
like that's who provides.
Yeah.
Work like that.
No, we have good healthcare.
Yeah, we have great healthcare. But that's the thing is, in Cameroon, it's not the case. So it's beneficial for them to have him stay. He had 4 tests done, so that's 4 times that he needs to pay for the consultation.
I mean,
to go
it's
in
better
and pay.
having a false negative than a false positive, because
Yeah,
that's what's
true.
happening a lot
Yeah.
between
Yeah.
like in tourism too. Like I heard that in our
No, you mean it's better to have a false positive than a false negative?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. You said the other way around.
Maybe. Well,
whatever.
let's just
Well
clear that up.
understood.
Yeah.
Anyways.
It's better to have a false positive than a false negative.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. But yeah, I think some people are messing with the tests in some countries.
Really?
It's not really that secure.
No, I heard that.
I thi-
it was
I-
all over the news.
I
in
think it is
Guadeloupe.
it is a legitimate thing because it's not just my dad. If it happened to a friend of his, and if they're doing that to everyone that enters the country, that's going to be a lot of money just going. So if it were to be true,
I mean, it also forces people to be safer.
yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely.
if that's the only way that people are actually going to take like social distancing measures seriously, I mean, I don't think it's good.
I don't think,
way,
but plus it wasn't
but-
the motive. Like when he was there, nobody was wearing a mask apart from him. So it's like, it's not like social distancing is like the number one rule there. They're not being super intense about it. So I think, we don't know, maybe he did actually get COVID, but also my dad is 51. He's healthy, but he's not the healthiest person. Like he's had health issues. So the fact that he had no symptoms, when I know people our age, like you, Anouk, who had symptoms,
Still have him. It's not gone.
No, it's not.
Always gonna be there.
I don't know. Maybe he didn't, but it's interesting to think that it could be a thing. I've heard it's a thing in a lot of countries where they profit from the whole situation and they've made a market out of COVID tests and stuff like that.
but also fake ones, like to improve, like to still have tourists coming in.
Exactly.
Like that was the thing in Guadeloupe.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
made like false negative.
So that people could
So
just
that-
come in. So I wouldn't be surprised. It's
No,
it's a
yeah,
possibility, but it's interesting to see how the situation is being handled
Yeah.
worldwide.
How people can like
Yeah, well,
But it's
take
crazy that
advantage
that's,
of
like,
these things.
a strategy for
Yeah,
some
it's
governments.
well,
or,
to feed your population. I mean,
Yeah, and
it's a
corruption as
problem.
well. Like yeah,
yeah.
to feed your pocket, you know, all that. But yeah, so that's interesting. Any other memorable moments from 2020? No, but that's good. How's pharma going? How's pharma under a pandemic?
Pharma is,
Still relevant.
Actually, I was reading this positive article that a lot of people who really hated pharma previously are starting to trust the industry a bit more with vaccines coming out. So that's a positive.
Okay.
Funny though.
But there's a lot of pressure, I guess, because it's kind of the make it or break it moment for the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
industry. So
Definitely.
I didn't know that so many people didn't trust pharma. It's crazy how people love to not trust things.
especially in France.
Yes,
Really?
And
in
you know that I
France,
actually was
girl.
reading that's why vaccination people don't want to get vaccinated so much in France. It's
Mm-hmm.
because there's such a distrust in pharma because it's associated to elite,
Exactly.
and French people hate elite.
Yeah, okay, well, lots of people hate the elite, but like the thing is, France, from what I've seen and I know, uses so much medication.
Yeah, what's the word?
There's a
Germophobes? I don't know. Hypochondriacs?
Yeah, French are like one of the highest hypochondriac populations.
That's the thing. French people have so much ease whenever they have anything a tiny bit wrong, like a tiny bit headache from a hangover, to just pop a little pill to feel better. So I don't understand how we don't trust pharma, yet we honestly consume so much medication. I mean, a lot of people don't, but yeah. Yeah, watch out. We're not going into detail because next week's episode will be much less chaotic, just like 2020. And we'll be really going into vaccine safety. But yeah, to finish us off, no, I was gonna go back to my my favorite and least favorite thing about 2020, which is Black Lives Matter.
Oh yeah.
Because I think, yeah, I think it's one of the most important things for me in my year. One of the most heartbreaking, life-changing, powerful, beautiful, anything moments that I've seen in my life. And yeah, I think if we're going to talk about lessons, we learned a lot just from these protests. I think it was like one of the hardest moments of my life. Like, it was the first time that I've realized my blackness for a while. I'm mixed race, so it's always been even harder. And I've only grown up in Europe, so it's always been very hard to kind of juggle the double identity. But I realized my blackness more than ever this year. And I also realized how much the West doesn't like black people and doesn't include us just through little things, and how much a country like France, which I associate and relate to so much, doesn't include and doesn't want to include me. And I think, yeah, those are all valuable lessons. I think 2020 taught us just how racist we all still are, how much work needs to be done, how not woke we are, but also how stereotypically anti-racist we can be. Like, so many people are doing things
like posting a black square on Instagram just to post a black square.
Yeah,
exactly, all wrong. And there's a lot of whitewashing and white-splaining and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, that's
If
a
anything,
topic
I think it taught a lot of people to understand that there was a problem.
Yeah.
Not necessarily actually pinpointing what the problem is
No,
or
yeah.
where it stems from. But I think a lot of people actually realized that there was a problem, which is kind of mind-blowing that we had to wait until 2020 for that to happen. But positive steps, small steps.
But this movement isn't like it's
Finished.
been First of all, it's not finished, but it's not the first movements we've seen like this year. It's been like it began.
Yeah, I feel like people
before.
are more outspoken now.
And the thing is, now we have the kind of the trauma porn element. Trauma porn being not like a Pornhub subcategory. It's just like
I got confused.
yeah,
I was like,
the art. Yeah. The art. Yeah, just
let's go to porn now.
no, trauma porn is when George Floyd's death is a perfect example of trauma porn. It's when you put out very shocking, sometimes disgusting images to try and either it can be with a good or a bad intention, either to raise awareness or to make a point. But trauma porn, there's a really good article on Insight. Past editor-in-chief, who's also a friend of mine, wrote an article about trauma porn. I would really, really, really advise that everyone reads it. But yeah, trauma porn, I think, does have a lot of negatives. But that's the element that came into the BLM movement this year. Is like, I've never seen something more upsetting than George Floyd's death ever in my life. Like, it's
emphasized.
It's horrible. And although I don't think that this video, I don't know if I agree with this video being broadcasted and being shown so much. Like, honestly, I genuinely almost got sick watching it from just like the lack of humanity. Like, physically felt sick. I've like cried. I felt upset watching videos, but here I felt like I was gonna pass out. I felt like I was gonna throw up everywhere. It was just literally gut-wrenching. And I think that's what was a game changer. Even though for his own privacy, I don't think it was great that it was out there. But everyone's seeing that. It's like, you can't watch that video and then claim that racism doesn't exist or that police brutality is okay or stuff like that.
It created exposure on police brutality, but even here in France,
Yeah.
we saw
That's what I was
so
gonna
many,
say.
like my cousins who are like 15 years old, like now they share
Exactly.
videos about
Videos like
police
this.
brutality happening in France.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Because
because it's
people
not
don't
only in
believe
the
it.
U.S.
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
everywhere.
yeah.
I
It's
think it's convinced
everywhere.
that people are convinced that it happens elsewhere and not here.
And the thing is, people are convinced that it is isolated issues when really it's a systemic problem. It's not some bad police officers, it's the system that is not built greatly. Exactly. And it's not some police officers are racist, it's the police, in my opinion, has too much power, too much freedom, and too much protection. And I think it made it really, really obvious because not only was George Floyd's death traumatizing for anyone who's followed that story, but also everything that came out of it made us realize, like, oh my God, this really isn't an isolated event. And the fact that it was just after it was Ahmaud Arbery's death and just before Breonna Taylor's.
So many others.
It was just, and people just felt like, okay, now I'm going to talk about this. And we realized, like, this literally happens weekly, if not daily.
Daily.
And
Definitely daily.
And I think that's what was upsetting, but also beautiful, is like, I feel for me, there was a long time of just like pain and a lot of sadness. Like I talked about it with my dad so much. I cried about it a lot. I cried with my sisters because there is really this thing where you sort of don't feel safe. And this is coming from someone who's never been, like, I've never been a victim of racism, like outright to my face. I've never been said no to anything because of my skin color. But it was so traumatizing because you feel unsafe and you also feel ignored. But then there was also this thing of like, oh my God, things are moving and people are listening and people are willing to listen to us, which is also a first. Yeah. They're willing to help, willing to show their support. Like all the BLM protests, which had so many people who weren't African or African American or mixed race, so many people from so many different cultures, just was really a beautiful thing to see. And that's where I think that's one of the main things of 2020 is it was such a traumatic and difficult year. But also I think a lot of people are more than ever willing, especially our generation, to change things.
A lot of awareness came out from awareness, but for the BLM movement, but also for many other things like sexism or
Islamophobia.
Yes, climate change. Yeah. Like a lot of that came up. And I think that's a good part of 2020.
Definitely.
Definitely good part.
Raising awareness.
Yeah, that's a good thing. And I feel like it really, the pandemic, we were all at home. We had nothing else to do but to read the news and read all the scandalous things happening everywhere. So
and also ask ourselves what we feel about it.
You were faced with it. You didn't have any time to do anything else.
A lot of people never had to question it. I mean,
exactly.
You know, you obviously had to at some point in your life, but a white cisgender person doesn't necessarily have to ask her or himself those questions, so or themselves. But that's the thing, like it's raising awareness, but even like being part of that
of
and
the change
Exactly.
but for yourself, because we're educated, but there's no boundaries to your education.
Definitely. And we're ignorant on a lot of topics. So. Definitely.
So that's the thing, we learned a lot. That's why I think lessons is a good word.
Definitely. We're going to just shut up, take it in, and think. Really think, like, how does this make me feel? How can I change it? Yeah. And that was really good. And
learning to listen.
Definitely. And listen to the people who know. Just admit that, okay, right now I don't know what I'm talking. Because the thing is, we had BLM and then we had Pride happening at the same time. I feel like Black Lives Matter was so perfect because it was one marginalized group that was like, enough. And started screaming for their rights. It's been happening for ages, but this, again, because we were all at home watching, the momentum was unprecedented. Like, we've never seen that before, I think. And then we had Pride just after that. And then in November, we had Islamophobia Awareness Month and stuff like that. And every minority was like, okay, now it's my turn. And the rest of us just turned and were like, okay, now we're listening. Like, I know, for example, I'm heterosexual and cisgender. So I was talking about Black Lives Matter. And then during Pride, that's where I take a step back, listen, and just take it all in. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to apply what you're saying to my battle. And I feel like all minorities also came together and were like, well, look, we're kind of all fighting for a different version of the same stuff. And then people who are less marginalized were just so willing to learn because we're like, okay, finally we see it and we're sorry and we're going to try and be with you from now on. I think that was a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Humanity.
Not only bad things.
Humanity. We saw a lot of lack of humanity, but we saw a lot of humanity in 2020.
It's the other side of the coin, right? Like, you see bad stuff, but you also see good stuff.
Exactly. You just have to choose what you want to focus on. Yeah, exactly.
We'll see, because we're obviously surrounded by a lot of educated people. And
a lot of open-minded people.
And open-minded people.
That's more important.
Exactly.
So we need to see how it goes.
Everywhere. If we can make progress in our own community, then
definitely.
There's hope for others.
And so now, speaking of progress, we move on to the 2021 resolutions, thoughts, because so far not so good.
The first week of January was so messed up that I don't think we need resolutions for the year. We need resolutions for life. The next week of our lives, because we can never plan what goes on past that.
I don't do resolutions. I don't like them because my resolution is to stop making resolutions and stop giving myself so many goals all the time that I never fulfill because I don't have time or I'm too lazy or whatever. Because having a resolution makes me feel bad about myself and I don't like it. So I don't do resolutions.
See, I'm the opposite though.
Yeah, I'm the opposite.
I like the structure that it brings to my brain. I like writing things down. I started doing resolutions after having a bad period with my mental health, we'll say. and it really, really helped kind of put my thoughts together, see what mattered, and then I don't look at them at all. I just do whatever I want to do for the whole year. And then it's funny looking back on them because there's a lot that I will have accomplished. But when I'm doing it, I'm never thinking, oh, this was on my list. And then seeing it on my list, I'm like, oh, funny that in Jan I wanted to do that. And in August I actually did. I'll have things that I haven't done, but also things that I have done that I didn't put on my list. It's just a nice way to start the year, kind of. And I feel like it's broadening. Like a lot of my resolutions this year, it's just like, educate myself more and like do more journalism and be more active, starting this podcast was one of my resolutions, and just try to broaden my horizons and broaden my open-mindedness. And I think those are good resolutions, and there's no time pressure or like self-care pressure on those, like just trying to be a better person. That's what my friend said, Matt Fry, in his podcast, which gave me the idea for this one. He said like, my main resolution is just to be a better person. And I thought like,
I think you really sold the thing of like the habit of making resolutions to me.
Yeah.
This is the first year of my life.
I kind of forced you to do it. But...
yeah, okay. Right. I was trying to be politically correct. No, yeah, it's good. I have resolutions and I'm keeping them for now.
Yeah.
So far.
We'll
see how it goes. But
Good.
so far, so good.
So far, so good.
I don't really have resolutions, honestly. I'm not like Anouk. I'm not as extreme as you are. Intense. Not extreme, but yeah, intense. I just go with the flow and
see where the wave takes me.
Yeah, if I want to engage in something, I will do it eventually. And but no, definitely try to be in a positive vibe.
Yeah, that's I think that's everyone's goal.
And especially in our times.
Be a happier person.
Yeah, just take the positive out of everything. It sounds so cliche, but honestly, maybe we need it these days. So yeah.
We definitely need it.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Okay.
I think we're quite a positive bunch.
Yeah.
Bunch.
Well, you should see our group chat.
I think it's
no, but I feel like we used to complain a lot more than we do now.
That's actually one
maybe
of my
because
resolutions.
we've grown.
Yeah, we've grown.
Because we were like 17, 16.
We've learned to check our privilege.
Yeah.
Oh my god, so woke.
Yes, I hate that word. I've said it too much in this podcast. I'll never say it again. I'm done. But yeah, do you have any last comments before we end this? How long is it? Oh, it's not too long actually. That'll be okay. Since we have 20 minutes of tech problems.
Approx.
Well, I loved this experience.
I feel like
I was very stressed.
I was actually really stressed, but then it turned out to be a good conversation.
Yeah, just a regular
But yeah, I'm so glad that you guys were my first guests. Thank you guys for being on the first episode with me. You'll see these girls.
Inviting us.
Oh, sorry. What did you want to say?
Will you invite us again?
Yes.
Yeah, you will be seeing these girls again many, many times.
All right, cool.
You will be hearing my voice a lot more. Unfortunately for you guys,
we love beautiful radio.
We waited for it.
And yeah, I'll be seeing you next week or the week after. It's gonna be amazing. Bye everyone.
Bye. Bye. Bye.